I can't move around. All of us have experiences or memories of what Remembrance Day may have or does mean to you. I remember growing up, Remembrance Day was a holiday that everything was closed, and you went to church on Remembrance Day. When I was first ordained many years ago, I was the assistant curate at St. Jude's Church downtown, and Remembrance Day was a high holiday. I was in my early 30s, and the rector asked me if I would preach on my first year as the curate there on Remembrance Day to a congregation of 600, most of whom were wearing blue blazers with berets and chestfuls of medals. It was palpable. The feeling and the energy was extraordinary. And I thought, who the heck am I to stand up in a pulpit and preach something meaningful to people like you? Well, I got through it, and they were very kind, and they were very forgiving that day. It is a powerful day for many. I remember many years ago, when I was about 9, my family and I went on vacation out to Gaspé, Quebec, on the very east coast of the country, where the Patterson clan are from. And most of my cousins still lived out there at the time. And as we did, we'd go to Haldeman House, which was a kind of a camp. We'd stayed at Haldeman House, and every day we'd go to the beach. And I remember one day we went down to the beach, and all my cousins and aunts and uncles, we were all together, and my Uncle Dermot, my father's younger brother, was there, and I was in the water, and I remember Uncle Dermot coming towards me to go into the water, and I looked at his legs, and they were incredibly disfigured and broken and damaged. It scared me. I always knew Uncle Dermot had a limp, a very distinct limp, but I never knew why. Well, I saw for myself for the first time, so I ran out of the water and I went over to my father and I said to Dad, "Dad, what happened to Uncle Dermot's legs?" And he said he was injured in the war. And that's all he said. And as what happens with memory, you don't remember exact times and moments, but at some point over the next day or 2 or 3, I approached my Uncle Dermot and I said to him, "Uncle Dermot, what happened to your legs?" He said, "A bomb was dropped and it went off and it injured me very badly, and I was in the hospital for a long time." Now, as a 9-year-old, I was well aware of what war was, because at some point in the preceding months or even year or so, my father and I and our family watched the movie The Great Escape. Do you remember The Great Escape with Steve McQueen? I saw that movie and I really wanted to learn how to ride a motorcycle after that movie. So I knew what war was, and I said to him when he said the bomb dropped, I said, "Did the Germans drop the bomb on you?" And he said, "No, the Germans didn't drop the bomb on me. The Nazis dropped the bomb on me." I didn't know what that meant, really. But what it did in my head over the following years was there was a distinction made for me between German and Nazi. Uncle Dermot followed up that comment by saying, "Germans are good people." So Germans had nothing to do with dropping the bomb on my Uncle Dermot. Fast forward decades, and it became clearer to me in time that what he was telling me was that war is not about people hating people as much as it is a war ideology against ideology. The German people, there's a sense of people within Germany who held a very fascist right-wing ideology and supported Nazism. We know that is evil and wrong. We know the outcome. We know there were many German people who did not support the Nazi regime. German people are good people. The reason I bring up that example is because I, and I'm sure some of you, have been struggling deeply with the conflict in the Middle East. Right out of the gates, after October the 7th, there was a response from the West that we must support Israel at all costs. We are their allies. We must destroy Hamas. What has frightened me in the preceding subsequent weeks is that there is more and more a sense that this has gone beyond an ideological conflict, where Hamas holds an ideology that none of us, I think, would support, and yet also the Israeli governing powers also, I believe, are holding an ideology that none of us will support. Palestinian people are being slaughtered. Jewish people have been slaughtered. There are Jewish people who do hold and support the ideology of their present government. There are also Palestinians who do support the ideology of Hamas. But the vast majority on both sides, I believe in my heart, do not want war. Human beings do not want war. We become, in situations like this, the victims of propaganda and the victims of a narrative that is counter to what I believe most human beings would hold within their hearts. Israel and the Palestinians have been in conversation for decades about the possibility of finding a road to peace, with stops and starts and stops and starts. There has been conflict and wars before, but nothing like this. We remember Yitzhak Rabin. We remember Shimon Peres. We remember Yasser Arafat. And on it went. The leaders of both groups that worked hard and diligently at finding a path to make it happen. We almost once got there. And we have now turned back the clock by generations. When Jesus came down from the mountain, last week we heard him upon the mountain preaching the Beatitudes, the 12 Beatitudes. And he was on the mountain speaking specifically to his disciples about the blessings of what it meant to be a follower of Christ and what the blessings that would be offered us. Today in Luke has Jesus come down from the mountain to the plains. This is referred to as a Sermon on the Plains, where he is in the midst of the people. He has the disciples around him and many, many others around him, many others who are curious about what this man had to say. He has just called the 12 to follow him. And I know for a fact that Jesus was quite aware and well aware of the geopolitical situation that he was engaged in what was happening amongst his people of the time. And maybe for me it's a stretch, but he said to them, when people hate you, and when they will revile you, they will exclude you, and they will defame you on the account of the Son of Man. He was saying there's going to be propaganda, and if you're going to fight for justice and equity and fairness, and we're going to fight the oppressor, you will be rejected. But rejoice in that because you're making progress. And then he turned his attention to some of the hearers that were the proponents of the present occupying Roman community, as well as some of the Jewish, what's the word I'm looking for? The Sadducees, the Pharisees, the leading, sorry? Leaders. Yeah. The leadership that were working hard at ensuring that their lives were not going to be disrupted by this present occupation. And he said, woe to you. You're rich, you're fed, you're happy. Most of us aren't. Most of these people are living without life, without hope, without love, by the thumb of the oppressor. But I say to you, Jesus said, what you can do is you can love them. And they're going to hate that. Love your neighbor as you would love yourself, and they're going to lose the sense of defensiveness and darkness within them. When you are kind to others, the hate begins to wither away. If anyone strikes you, go the extra mile. Really make them mad. Turn your other cheek and let them have at you again. When they take all your possessions, let them take it. And they're going to think, what the heck is that person doing? They will let their guard down. The road to peace is by the road of love, the road of compassion, and the road of hope. And by golly, you know and I know well how difficult that is, because it's fun to hold resentment sometimes. It's fun to hang on to anger, and it's really great when you are really so mad at somebody, you say, I'm never going to speak to that person again. It's easy to do that. But we well know that it eats away at your own soul. We need to find purpose through the power of God's unconditional love to us as a gift. And that is the means by which the road to peace is made. I want to conclude with a story I came across this week, of course, on the internet. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, there lived a very wise queen who ruled over a very large, powerful country. The wise queen was always doing things to teach her people to live in peace. And one day, the wise queen announced that there would be a contest to see who could create the most beautiful painting that portrayed peace. And many great painters from all over the world sent the queen their paintings. One of the many paintings was a masterpiece which depicted a magnificent, calm lake, perfectly mirroring peacefully towering snow-capped mountains. And above the mountains was a clear blue sky with just a few fluffy clouds. The picture was perfect. Almost everyone who saw the painting was convinced that it was the best portrayal of peace, and it was sure to be chosen by the wise queen as the winner. However, when the queen announced the winner, everyone was shocked. The painting, which won the prize, had mountains too, but they were rugged and bare. The sky looked really very angry, and lightning streaked through the ominous clouds. The scene did not look at all peaceful. It looked like the artist had made a mistake and painted a vicious storm instead of peace. But if anyone bothered to look closely at the painting, they would see a tiny bush growing in the cracks of the rugged mountain rock. In the bush, a mother bird had built her nest, and in the midst of the rush of an angry storm, the bird sat calmly on her new nest. The wise queen understood that peace is born in places where you would least expect it. Peace is born in the midst of the chaos. Peace calms the troubled heart. Peace, real peace, is a state of mind, a way of being that breaks out in the midst of turmoil. A mother bird's calm, despite her chaotic, dangerous surroundings, is the embodiment of peace. Calmly loving, caring for those around us in the midst of chaotic, tumultuous times, despite the danger or the apparent hopelessness. To love without fear is a way of being in the world that breaks out in the strangest of places. Peace is a way of being in the world that appears to be bereft of the possibilities of peace. And I think that's what Jesus was trying to tell them while he preached the Sermon on the Plain. Peace I leave with you, he said. My peace I give to you. Thanks be to God. Amen. Again, would you stand as you are able as we affirm our faith together? We are God's work of art. Each one of us
Divine Spirit, hear the voice of your people. We come together today with certain